Hey, what is up, everyone? This is Ete here with another episode of The Company Next Door. And today, as you can see, I'm with my guest, Ryan Bégin. That's a good way. That's a wave was for you, YouTube. That's a YouTube wave. Is that your YouTube wave?
Hey, Ete. Yeah.
We are here in Ormond Beach, Florida. As you know, if you've been following the show, Ryan, you can look this way. You don't have to stop. I do that.
No,
Okay.
yeah.
I look at the camera a couple times and that's it. But if you follow the show, you know I'm down in DeLand, Florida. The last 3 episodes have been with entrepreneurs in DeLand. And today we're in Ormond Beach, which is about 35, 40 minutes from DeLand. Just go straight towards the shore. So we are on the beach. The Halifax River comes in. For those of you, most of you will know Daytona Beach. I mean, that's a famous place. That's the bordering town. Daytona, you got your Indy, you got your race car driving, you got Bike Week.
Yep.
You've got, Daytona's a popular place. It's known for being a little fun.
Notorious.
Tell us a little bit about Ormond Beach, because it's not, they border, but they're not the same town.
No, Ormond's a neat little town that has a lot of history, and I think probably the one thing that bothers me more now than anything is just so many people aren't aware of that history.
Yeah.
And I wasn't. I was born here, and when I moved away and came back, it wasn't until I came back that I realized how much deep history it has. And what it's really known for in small circles is that it was the birthplace of speed.
Huh?
So this is where
not the movie Speed with Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, no. This is where the brainchild of Speed came. This is where they started doing racing on the beaches. So land speed records were set here first, and this is where they really started setting before the Bonneville Salt Flats in Utah.
In Utah,
they started getting going here, and they had a garage over on the beach side, and back then it was a wealthy sport. You had Vanderbilt and Olds and Ford and any of the big names from back then. They're coming right here on the beach and racing up and down the beach.
Yeah.
So that was circa 1900, in the aughts, what they call it, and that's when it got started. And
Gotcha.
It was kind of the winter home of where a lot of wealthy people came before they had AC, and then it moved down to West Palm.
And here we are on a history tour of Ormond Beach, but this, I got to hear it. Was Daytona Beach back then? Was it anything like it is now?
No, it was much smaller, but it kind of dovetailed. So one thing dovetailed into the other. So, as Ormond was declining as a destination location, and as the racing moved out west to the Salt Flats, then Bill France was in Daytona. And I don't know the timeline exactly, but in the late 40s, early 50s, he started NASCAR in Daytona. That's awesome. So it already had a racing history here.
Yeah.
And then it moved south just a little bit down the beach, and they started racing on the beach. And it was there's actually a restaurant still there called North Turn.
Oh, cool.
And that was the north turn of the oval track. It would go up the beach, down A1A,
Gotcha.
Back up the beach, down A1A. And, as a matter of fact, when you watch Cars
movie, the Pixar. Yeah.
Hudson.
The Hudson
Hornet. That's where he was racing down there on the sand beaches.
See, if you had led with Hudson Hornet,
that's
I would have been like, dude,
the
Hudson Hornet.
That's where he was. Yeah, he was racing there on the beach, and he. So that started NASCAR. So NASCAR literally, if you go down the beach here just a little bit, on a little motel over there on the beach side that recently got renovated, on the top story is where NASCAR got its start. Just some heads got together, Bill France, and he started the NASCAR industry. So that's right cool. Down the beach. So it's it's got its history, and then starting in the 70s, I guess the Hells Angels started getting involved here as well. There was a little bit of decline after, the Daytona had its name. It had its heyday, and then there was a little bit of a decline, and then they went into Bike Week. That was the next. Yeah, that was the next big event.
So let me ask you this: doing business here in Ormond Beach. So the company we're talking about today is Kitchen Gallery, and it's been in the family for a while. We were talking about it before we started, and it wasn't Kitchen Gallery itself has been, I think this is 25th year. But we were saying that your uncles and before that they were in another company, so we're coming up on 50 years of this type of industry in the family.
Yeah.
What has it been? All that history, the race car, all these cool, which is a huge part of American culture, does that trickle down into, how does that connect to the business? Is it influence the city of Ormond Beach at all as far as the people that come and the people that shop here that you work with? Or?
I think a lot of the people actually that came here weren't aware of Ormond Beach as a part of that. And even with NASCAR, they don't understand the full history of NASCAR here. So there's not a lot of depth there. They really look at it as a veneer. You know, it's just that on the surface, there's a track in Daytona somewhere where you go racing, and they know for that 1 week of Speed Week when all the racing is going on, they don't want to be around there. Just don't want to drive there, right? It's a lot of the retirees that come down. And then a lot of the professionals that have moved here, you know, the healthcare industry and so on, that support the retirees that are here. They're not interested.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of a side of Daytona where we get a lot of people that come in, but I find the history to be fascinating.
Yeah.
So as a matter of fact, we're in the middle of remodeling our showroom right now, and we're kind of in a corner of it right now. That's
if you could tell, we're
okay
not
to look at.
Yeah, we're not in his house in the kitchen. That's a nice kitchen, by the way, but it's the showcase.
Thanks. So when we were looking at redoing our showroom, one of the things we wanted to do was we want to incorporate, whether it's through photography or memorabilia or things bring some of that history back into this place. There's another entrepreneur here in town. He's on a totally different scale than we are, but he's redoing some of the downtown Ormond, and he's done a lot of new, like whether it's restaurants, there's a little Frame of Mind. There's like just different projects that he's done along the Main Street there, and I think one of the great things he's doing is restoring the history of the area. So he's bringing in like old race cars that were used on the beach over here, replicas of full-size replicas. I think in today's world, there's something fascinating about reconnecting with that history in some way.
Do you think that's being lost? I mean, upon newer entrepreneurs and just people in general?
It's easy in the digital world, you know. Everything's about technological advancement. Everything's always about moving forward.
What does that even mean, right? What is technology? I mean, advancement. Are we going forward or backward? You know, I wonder that. Anyway,
not to jump ship here, but like even looking at the product that I carry. So there was always this movement towards like new, like the fashion industry, and now we're starting to see companies that can do all that try to re-implement or redevelop like real product. So they're like, I'll just give you an example, like on a faucet, for example, or a piece of hardware like sitting behind me here. One of the new things is to add a knurled finish. It almost gives it like a handcrafted feel. Okay. So what I'm getting at is I think there is a desire in people's lives to have real again, even in their homes. And does that play out for entrepreneurs? I think, I think to me, like one of the important things is to be able to connect with people on that deeper level. Yeah. Other than just like business to consumer level. Yes. You know, it's all about
relationships,
B2C.
Back to people.
Relationships. And again, it's back to real.
How do you do that in this industry? Because, and that's actually something I'm thinking about, like, you know, everything's changed besides COVID, right? I mean, the last 10, 15 years, every industry has done some massive changes to whether it's digital shopping. So that's my question. You got places like Lowe's and Home Depot. They sell kitchens, right? You've got places where you can go online and order kitchens. How do you stay true to the realness we're talking about? You know, the customer, the one-on-one relationships, give that high quality, but also stay competitive with this age.
Oh, that is going to become difficult more and more so. Okay. There's automation in everything. And even in we've primarily been in the cabinetry industry with design as our focus, and that's even becoming automated now. So there's like Autodesk, which is a major software programming company that develops AutoCAD and a lot of other Revit and so on. I don't know how many years they've had this under their belt now, but just the past year or so, I just saw that they're coming out with AI for house design, residential design.
I've seen that.
You just plug in your metrics, your site location, and so on, and it does a phenomenal job. Yeah, and it really is incredible. And you're like, where's the architect? I just read an article the other day. What's the future for architects? And so in the design industry, in the residential design industry, which is really what we're a part of, or it's just a subsection of that, that always is in the back of my mind. How do I differentiate myself, or what do we do going forward? And it's a difficult question. I'm not saying I have all the answers, but it is interesting to see how it's playing out right now. I will say one thing that held true, and COVID was kind of a little bit of a litmus test for that, one thing that's held true is people do want to have relationships with those who are a part of their house project. It's a part of their home. There's more than just a product in their home. There's an individual that was behind that product. And I'm seeing that even in our industry with, when a new faucet, when a new piece of hardware comes out, a new finish for cabinetry comes out, a new door style with cabinetry comes out. I'm just talking about kitchen and bath products, but when you see these, when they do these product introductions, something that I've seen kind of start happening over the past 2 to 3 years is the manufacturers are allowing the designers airtime and actually making videos and so on to show the creative process that was involved and where did their ideas come from, what developed that idea, and how did they bring that idea into fruition, into a product. And so, you're asking like, well, how are we able to, how is this playing out for entrepreneurs and so on with the this change in technology and so on? And I feel like it's I think it's becoming more and more important to explain in a very fundamental way. You don't want to bore the client.
Yeah, for sure.
But just fundamental, quick ways to help them understand the thinking and the process and the human process behind what you're doing and why you're doing it.
It's almost like telling the story behind it.
The story behind it.
Which is literally that's literally what I'm doing today with the podcast, right? And one of the hopes I have for the show is people in this area hear it and they go, wow, I really like Ryan. I've connected with him through this hour-long episode, and they build that relationship. So yes, I think story is more important than ever.
It is.
But there's some automations and things are part of the world, It's
hopefully it's being used in a way that can augment your own capabilities.
Yeah.
And even with the way we work with clients, day to day, that's changed. I mean, in the past, my if I go back 40 years and talk about with my dad and my uncles about what they used to do, it was a big deal for them when they got a fax machine.
Yeah.
And the contractors they were working with, they bought fax machines for every one of their contractors so that because none of their contractors had a fax machine. None of them. So they bought a fax machine so that their factory was able to communicate with each of the manufacturers and let them know updates and so on instantaneously. That was the idea, though.
Right.
And spit out reports.
Right.
So that way of communicating was still, there was still a human side to it, but it sped it up.
So, well, let's go back because your father started, and your uncles, they started the kitchen gallery.
Well, they started Modern Age.
Modern Age.
So they started Modern Age.
That was almost, did we say over 50 years?
That was about 50 years ago. I mean, just
crazy.
Talking to you before, I didn't pick up on that till just today, yeah.
and they were from Canada.
Yep.
Right? Mm-hmm. And they found their way to this area, this Ormond Beach?
Yeah, so I don't know the story perfectly.
Okay.
But my understanding is one of there's 10 in their family. They lived on a farm, and when they moved south here to Florida, one of them, my Uncle Claude, I believe was the first to come to Florida. And he actually moved down, I believe, into Hollywood, Florida area, or south towards Miami somewhere. I don't know this story exactly, and I don't know what brought him up here other than there was a business that he became partners in. And then I believe he bought it out, and that was right around 1970, 71 or so when he bought that out. And then the rest of the brothers came one by one and started working for him. Not all of them, but the remaining 4 that came to work for him came within the next year or so.
So they're all just coming down from Canada saying, hey, this place is awesome. Let's get down here.
Basically, yeah. Different lifestyle for them.
Sure.
So
Oh, yeah.
Totally, especially
because I feel like your dad, when I've talked to him, they were doing, they're in Canada like maple trees, right? Like syrup. He was talking about maple syrup as a kid, and
that was a side project.
Yeah, you drill into a tree, and the syrup. That's a different world.
When you lived on a farm, just like anyone anywhere, they lived on a farm. When you did live on a farm, you depending on the time of year, you made money whatever you could do, whatever you could, however you could use that land. You
make the money.
Yeah.
So they migrate. They start this company, and so you're born in this area.
I was born here,
and you weren't always here though. I know you were in Utah for a short area.
Yeah, about 4 years.
About 4 years. You were in the Northwest?
DC. No, I was in DC
you
for
were
about
DC?
a year.
Okay.
Yep.
Were you
Well,
ever
in Herndon.
Okay.
Never lived in the Northwest.
Okay,
No.
I don't know why I thought that.
Yeah, no, Utah and then DC, and then I moved to South Florida. Went to Gainesville for school.
To the UF.
Yep, University of Florida.
And so it's just, well, you and your sister Gina, that's your twin.
Yep.
And which I don't know if you could tell. I don't know. It's one of those twins. Like, are you really? You know?
Yeah. We're not identical.
But when you were a kid, were you then all the time like? Because if your uncles and your dad, your family's all here doing this type of work, were you growing up around the shop and around the tools and design? Was that what you always wanted to do?
You know, I couldn't remember that very well, and so I actually came across some old, I don't know, I wouldn't say journals, but some stuff from some scrapbooks that my mom had kept, and it was kind of interesting to see that, yeah, I did.
Really?
I did want to. I couldn't remember that because I did leave this area when I was 8, and so then when I moved away, I think I lost that thought process.
Yeah.
Because I just wasn't around it anymore. My mom and dad were divorced, and
Right.
I moved away, and that's when we moved to Utah, and I started other interests at that point, you know, kind of out of sight, out of mind in a way a little bit.
Sure.
I don't mean to put it in a crass sort of way, but
Yeah, you weren't around
as a
it,
kid,
yeah.
and I wasn't around it. But it was interesting to go back to some of those older things and see that and go, oh, I wanted to do this.
Yeah.
You know, I really wanted to do that.
Was
So-
there anything else that you remember that you wanted to do that you were like, what?
well, as a matter of fact, I thought I was going to be a meteorologist. I laugh about it now, but it's like, I wanted to study meteors.
That's as close as, hey, you're almost there. I mean, kitchens, meteor.
Meteors, yeah, meteorologist. No, I loved weather, so I was just reading about, like, what is...
I've never heard anyone say I loved weather.
Why was it called meteorology? And I was just reading about that recently. Like, who came up with that? That's usually like a biologist studies biology.
Yeah,
a meteorologist, well, they study meteors. No, they study weather. Anyway, so when I was growing up, though, I just loved it, and I just really thought that I was going to be into weather. But that really started after I left here, because when I looked at it before then, when I was looking at my stuff, I was like, yeah, and I remembered it kind of came back like a flood. Like I really wanted to be into cabinetry. I thought I was going to be, working at Modern Age. I used to roll around in it was a large factory. They put out about 25 kitchens a day. Whoa. And they had, between 150 and 200 employees.
So it's hopping. I mean, you were around.
Oh, yeah. It was neat. It was really neat.
It was probably exciting.
Oh, it was totally
So
cool.
was that sad to leave as a kid and have to go out to Utah?
Oh, yeah, in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I left my dad, and
yeah.
I remember specifically a time when so I've never shared this with him, or I don't know if I've ever talked to my mom about it, but she probably remember it. But I was in the house, in our new house in Utah, and we just moved there, and it wasn't that I loved it, and I was actually excited to move out there. I was excited.
Yes.
I was a kid. I didn't get it. It was a new thing. It was just fun, but I didn't understand the repercussions and what this all really meant. And all of a sudden, I was out there, and it was our first few months out there, and it was in the fall, and I just remember laying on a bed, I just crying uncontrollably. I just couldn't stop. I missed my dad.
Oh,
and I don't remember missing anyone else or thinking, I don't remember missing anything else about it. I just missed my dad. I just remember that really hit me. Not at all.
What did you go to school for?
I went to, University of Florida. I was, my first year I was enrolled in architecture school.
Okay.
It was grueling. I was told at the time, don't quote me on this, it may have changed as well, but I was told at the time that was the hardest bachelor's degree you could go for. And they had
and you still went for it.
Yeah, well, I didn't know until I got into it. But I didn't question it, though, because that's a passion for architecture.
Yeah.
By that point, meteorology was kind of played second fiddle to me. I still loved weather. I loved nature. I loved the sky.
I love this. I love weather comment.
Let me tell you something that happened. It was kind of funny. We were in, this is in 8th grade. I was in a physics class. Actually, I went to 8th grade here in Ormond.
Okay. So
I came here in Ormond for 1 year. And lived with my dad for 1 year, one school year.
Yeah.
And I was in physics class at Ormond Beach Middle, and he loved weather. This physics teacher, he loved the weather. And as a matter of fact, I guess he was one of those, I don't want to say amateur meteorologists or whatever, but he was.
Sorry, man. I love weather. Got me. Okay. Sorry.
So he had the Weather Channel going on the TV in the classroom. You know, all the classrooms back then had those big tube TVs, you know, sitting in the corner.
Yeah.
So the TV was on, and anyone in class just, I mean, it didn't matter what was on the TV. You were just glued to it because the TV was on in class.
Yeah,
it didn't matter.
Yeah.
It wasn't class time. This was TV time. It was the Weather Channel. So there's a low pressure over.
We need a green screen and put some clouds up, and you can just.
I'm going to do it so it's your direction here, okay? So there's a low pressure down in the southwest corner of Arizona, and it's spinning there, and the weather. And the meteorologist on screen, let's say it was Jim Cantori, right? Because he's been there forever. So he's on there, and he's talking about this low pressure, and the physics teacher's up front. And he and he stopped. He turned it down. He's like, "Does anyone know what that's called?" I said, "It's a heat low." And he said, "Who said that?" And that was my claim. That was my day of fame right there.
that was the only question you ever got right.
It was a heat low. So anyway, yeah, I moved into architecture though. Like when I went to high school, just really developed this desire for I just love of architecture, love of design. Love of residential building and how things were put together and constructed. And that's what I went to college for.
So you had a love for architecture and the design and everything. Did you have a love for business? Because you saw it growing up. You saw what it was like. You saw behind the curtain of the life of your father and your uncles, the entrepreneurs out there, the ups and downs. What was your thought in high school and college on the business side of it?
Business was not a consideration for me.
Huh.
It really was. I'm not the typical entrepreneur, or maybe no one's typical.
No one's typical, but I think I know where you're going.
But I'm not honestly, I'm probably the better manager. And that being said, though, my mind never stops thinking about new things. But I'm not inherently a risk taker. But that being said, again, I feel like that's all I do in life is constantly take risks, but I do it in a super methodical sort of way that is maybe the comfort level for me.
Well, and I guess, there are different versions of, when people say entrepreneur, sometimes we do think of this guy's out there.
Type A personality.
Yeah, his hands in 10 things. Go that, order this, sell this, move this.
Yeah.
But I'm finding that that's actually, there's less of those. And more of, there's just all kinds of people.
I kind of look at them as the successful ones, and I'm the one that's just like steady as
I
she
don't
goes.
know, because don't jump the gun, but we're going to talk about success, so because we may not find that to be true. But anyway, so that wasn't a consideration of yours at the time.
Business wasn't.
Saw it, okay.
No, and you know what? That's kind of interesting you bring that up because I hadn't made that connection until right now in my mind, and I don't know if there's any truth behind this, but I find like if you do something, don't worry about the money. If you're willing to do something well, the money will come in one way or another. And maybe, if you're really interested in something and you push forward with it, the business will come. I don't know, maybe there's like some connection to that.
No, I think that's great
so
advice.
I wasn't really focused on the business side of it. And that may have just been naive or because I was young. Maybe I wasn't thinking of the nuts and bolts side. I was thinking of the passionate part that I had, which was architecture. And I wanted to be an architect, which basically meant that and I didn't really plan on working for a large corporate firm either. That wasn't my plan. I really wanted to have my own architecture practice. So I guess in the end of the day, I was going to have a business whether I knew it or not.
Whether you knew it or not,
yeah.
Gotcha. So it sounds like maybe not intentionally did you ever think of going into business, but perhaps subconsciously or just something that just seemed to be where you were going with it.
I always wanted to have control over what I was going to do. That part of it. Yeah. There's a lot of risk to that.
Yep.
I didn't realize that. Like I said, I was naive about a lot of it, but I did recognize that I wanted it to be my, and I think the reason is because whenever I thought of architectural greats, one of my favorites was Frank Lloyd Wright.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone knows that's a household name.
Yeah.
But still, because he does good work, I liked him.
Yeah.
It was, it wasn't a bad thing to like Frank Lloyd Wright, even in architecture school. But anyway, there's people that'll say otherwise.
Yeah, for sure.
But, they might think of that as like the bubble gum sort of,
Yep.
But that being said, when you think of any of them, you think of the individual. And the individual had a staff. And they were at the head of almost like a a conductor.
Yeah, with an orchestra.
You know, with an orchestra.
Yeah.
And so you kind of looked at them as that was their name was behind it, and their name was the business, and they were the business, and that it was all integral in one. And I kind of looked at that as my way to get forward. And once I was done, I wanted to have my own. I wanted to be my own. I wanted to run my own, so on.
Gotcha.
So I didn't realize it was going to be a business, though.
Yeah. No.
I didn't realize I had to pay bills.
Yeah, is there a way to do this?
Yeah. My dad and my Uncle Noel, his brother, the two of them were what started Kitchen Gallery. So it went from modern age as a factory where they produced, designed, installed, shipped, everything.
This big thing.
Yeah, to Kitchen Gallery, where he just opened up a shop and a storefront and started doing design work and became a dealer. So it's a totally different model of business. But my dad was always on the sales side at the other business. He was on the sales side of the operation. So when he came here, that's what he kept doing, what he had always done, and that's the sales side.
Gotcha. So not so much the same industry. It's a little bit of a different business. I mean,
it's a different business model because it's no longer your own.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he had his own business. It's now called Kitchen Gallery Showroom, and now he was a dealer reselling product and focusing on design of those spaces.
So he starts over, smaller, and is this the building that we're in now?
No, we were actually in a plaza at the time. He was in a plaza. He was leasing a storefront.
Okay.
That went on for 5 years. And I believe when the lease agreement was coming up, that's when he decided to kind of scout out for a building to move into.
And that's where we are today.
Yep. So they bought this building in 2000, end of 2000, moved in here in 2001.
Gotcha.
So it's been 20 years.
And then, so tell me, when did you come involved? How did you make your big switch to like, here I am, Dad, I'm back, or I'm here, I guess.
That's kind of so when Susie and I got married.
So we didn't even mention it. This is my brother-in-law, guys, Ryan Bégin.
So his sister,
my sister
Susie, I married in 2005, and by that point I was no longer in architecture school. So I no other way to say it. I dropped out. One day I did a presentation of one of my projects and I didn't finish it. I never finished my projects. My professor was a wonderful guy, just a wonderful guy. And I couldn't have had a better professor at this point. And he came to me and he said, Ryan, you need to make a decision. You make fantastic, I would just call them jewel boxes. They're beautiful, but they're not finished. Your project's not complete. You haven't designed out the whole space. You have little jewel boxes. I was like, oh, interesting. So I went to his office later after that, and I kind of had a little powwow with him, and I realized I needed to make a decision. Did I want to stay in architecture any longer? Did I want to do that, or what did I want to do? So I wasn't really sure what to do, and that's when I went into business. Maybe that's always the fallback in college. Like if someone's in college, I don't know what else to do. I'm going to go into business. Yeah, I don't know. So that's what I did. I went to international economics is what I chose. I really always liked economics, but never thought of it as a profession for me.
Yeah.
International economics. And after I got my degree and I went into grad school, started that, got married. Then I realized I don't want to be overseas. I had spent some time overseas after I'd finished my undergrad degree and over in Taiwan, and I spent a few months there, and I really loved it and everything. But when I got back, I realized that's not where I wanted to do with my family. I saw the expat life, and that was the direction I was heading. 100% full steam ahead. Sounds so crazy different than what I was doing at architecture school, but I liked it.
Yeah.
And as a single adult, just single young male, nothing to tie me down.
Sure,
sounded glamorous.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah. I was gonna go live over there, do what I wanted to do. China was the place.
Yeah.
This is 2004. China it was all about it. So that's what I was gonna do, and then it dawned on me I didn't want to do that. Crazy how life just You think what
you're all in, and then the next thing you know, wait, that's not what I want to do.
I didn't want to do that because all of a sudden reality, which was more important to me, the reality of family really hit me. And I was getting ready to propose to Susie, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, there'll be kids.
That comes.
Everything, I'll have a family, and I don't want them to, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I didn't want that for my family. No, absolutely. And I met some wonderful families overseas that were from Canada and the US and so on, in England, that were living in Taiwan and raising their family there. And I also saw some that were going back and forth. And I didn't want that. I didn't want the back and forth. And I didn't know, I knew in the corporate culture, I wouldn't have control over that if I wanted to advance.
Gotcha.
I wouldn't have as much control over my schedule, where I was going to be and so on, especially as you're climbing the ladder. So, and who knows how well I would have climbed the ladder. Little did I know that the big recession, the Great Recession, was about to come. I might have dropped off that ladder regardless. Yeah. So in any case, I decided I actually didn't know where to go and what to do. And I thought, my dad's got a place. And it sounds kind of like a cop-out, but I thought, I remembered a little bit from when I was a kid. Of course, I visited my dad. I visited him all the time, and I kind of been around it. And I didn't know all the ins and outs of it, but I thought, hey, maybe it's worth a shot. It's kind of related to architecture that I liked before. I mean, it's definitely related to architecture. It's a little subsect of it. And so that's what I decided to do. I had a little meeting with my dad, and I said I'd like to do that. I think he might have been a little bit disappointed in some ways. Because he always wanted to be an architect. Not always, I shouldn't say always, but there was a period of his life he really wanted to become an architect. And so he had seen that out of my grasp now. And then I was going off to be this, I don't know what he thought of that, but maybe some sort of a hotshot, corporate, you know. And that wasn't going to happen. Now he's going to work for me. And so I don't know. I don't know if he thought I don't know if he thought I was just a cop out doing that or what. And I'm not trying to put words in his mouth at all, because he may have been just totally excited and happy about it. I don't know, but I kind of got that little bit of feeling. So anyway, when I started working here initially, we came here in 2006. Susie and I moved to Ormond Beach. Yep. We moved here. I started working for my dad right away. And I was just doing sales and design. Didn't know anything about it. Wow. You think you do, but then you realize you don't know anything. And I was just an employee. That's all I was. So for the first 5 years, I was just an employee of Kitchen Gallery. And I say just an employee. I had no involvement in the management of the business. Gotcha. I had no, I was literally I was just a paid by commission salesperson.
Clock in, clock out.
Boy, I wasn't even on the clock, but that idea. Correct. Yeah. Wasn't on, but I was on a commission basis. And
Gotcha.
So, which you do learn a little bit of risk involved with that. Yeah. I'd have to go, I would get a great job, and then you would, there was time, especially when you're starting out. Up and down. Ups and downs of commission and sales and so on. And so you kind of see that, you start to that process of seeing how risk affects your daily life and how much risk are you willing to take. But I could see there was steadiness to it, and it provided a living and so on. And I thought I didn't know how long I'd just be in that position, but I also didn't know how long I'd be with Kitchen Gallery, honestly, in the beginning. I might go become a kitchen designer somewhere else. I wasn't sure. Yeah.
So it was just kind of it was right at the time. You didn't know if it's going to be your forever
thing.
Didn't know. And you ended up buying the house, your property, and you bought a property behind the house. You're just a couple blocks from here.
So in 2010, we saw a house come up that was kind of like a little dream house for us. Other people, it wouldn't be a dream at all. It'd be like, let's get out of here. But it was this old home that had been renovated, and because of the recession, the price of the house just plummeted. And so for us, it became available. Yeah. And we purchased it, and it's 2 blocks from work. And that was one of the primary reasons we purchased it. It was 2 blocks from work.
And at that time, was that when you were like, you know what, I'm all in, I'm going to become more than just an employee?
No, didn't know that yet at all. Gotcha. Didn't know that at all. Didn't know the timeline or what was going to happen there, but we felt like we didn't want to rent any longer. And prices seemed to be really low.
Gotcha.
It was 2010, and they were low. So it was a good time to buy, and it worked out for us. And actually in this area, we did okay, even through the recession. There was people that left Kitchen Gallery. They kind of left, there was attrition more, so we didn't lay anyone off. Others found other things. They decided to move off and go. So there actually was enough work to maintain our income through the recession. And so we were fortunate that way, individually. For us as a family, we were able to do that. So we decided to purchase at that time. It wasn't an expensive home, of course, but It was our first home, and we were happy with it. And but we liked it because it was 2 blocks away.
Yeah.
And it allowed us to kind of keep. It's kind of interesting to say that because it was the polar opposite of being an expat, right?
Yeah.
I'm 2 blocks from my work.
Yeah, you're just like, I'm staying
I'm not.
in.
Yeah, no corporate travel or anything like that.
So when did you decide I'm gonna be more than just, and how
Oh,
that,
that's
I want to
right,
know
yeah,
about how did
sorry.
that conversation go? Do you remember that?
Well, that I do. So this
Was your dad
not,
just like, wait a minute,
no,
what?
No, what this is a. And this might be a part you edit out. I don't know.
Okay.
We'll see.
Yeah, let's lay it out.
But so what happened was in 2011. So just fast forward a year or so, and it was around Thanksgiving time, and our bookkeeper was not. And you guys were in Pittman still, weren't you at the time?
Yeah, we were. Yep.
So you might have Christmas time. You may have seen me. Well, let me back up here.
Yeah.
So around Thanksgiving,
I know where you're going. Yeah.
Yeah, around Thanksgiving. Our bookkeeper was missing, MIA. We didn't know who our bookkeeper was, and it was a week before Thanksgiving or so, and we couldn't get a hold of her. It was a week. Like, what's going on? Where is she? And bills need to be paid, and stuff need to be done, and checks need to be written, and payroll, and so on. And I had no accounting background other than accounting 101 I had to take in college, which
Sure.
I couldn't stand. So accounting is not my thing. And I went to, I forget exactly what I did, but I went into her office, and I was kind of fumbling around, and I saw stacks of bills and stuff, and I started opening them up. It's like, oh boy, like we owe a lot of money.
Oh man, that you didn't even know about.
Didn't know anything. I was out of it. Like I didn't know any of the goings on of the business. Some personal stuff talked to my dad,
Sure.
but never talked business with me. And so I went in and I saw some of the bills. I opened some up and I saw late notices. I'm like, what? Late notices? Why do we have late notices?
Yeah, we have a bookkeeper.
And not only do we have late notices, but then I also saw a bill right there, and it says we're going to be cutting your power off.
Wow.
I was like, I know what that means. That's like 3 months late. That's not.
Yeah,
that's not like, oh, you just forgot to pay your bill on time. So I was like, what's going on here? And so then we couldn't get a hold of her. And about a week later, she called in like, oh, my husband's in the hospital. He was an electrician, and something had happened to him. He'd been in the hospital. Like, oh, we're so sorry. Okay, we'll do what we can here to pick up your pieces this past week and everything. But then she never showed up, And the next few days, nothing. She said, and then we never heard from her again.
Can you tell us roughly how much, or you don't have to? It's just interesting with the story.
Yeah, it was about $650,000 loss to the company.
Sure.
That had occurred. And because I did go back in some ways, further back than the 5 years, on things that were easy pickings, just quick to pull. But the crazy thing, I was able to go in and see that she had taken, she had used the money. She had, I believe, 4 boats. She had, we had
Who
paid.
needs 4 boats?
I don't know. She had 4 boats. She always had a new car.
Yeah. You're all, wait a minute. You work for us.
She had a new kitchen. She had the best kitchen out of anyone that worked here. We saw pictures of it. She also had, we had paid for her cell phone, her kid's cell phone, paid for trips. We paid for, I think we'd paid for like, I would say about a dozen cruises. She just lived this, this wonderful life because she had her and her husband's income plus all that.
So I hope anyone out there is listening, if you put that type of trust, and not that we want to go around not trusting people, but I'm just thinking in my mind this whole time, I'm like, wow, like how do you trust your team, but
Trust
also
but verify.
how do you have something, a system in place to keep them honest, to help, you know what I mean? Like,
that's a good point. So it's because it's been something that's been in my mind a lot, of course, over the past 10 years or so, is that whole idea of trust, but you don't want to do things that make it look like you don't trust, but you want to make sure that you can verify.
Yeah.
So there are controls you should always have in every business that are just above board and everyone's on the same page. Just controls like who signs the checks, who doesn't sign the checks, who views the statements, who allows expenses to occur or not to occur, who does the approvals, all these sorts of things, just controls in a business. And that's a good thing. And that was a lesson learned for me the hard way, to see it like right up front and center when I'm getting involved in the business from a more than salesperson standpoint, to see firsthand, oh no, this stuff matters. This really matters a lot. So having controls, and that sounds so basic to some people that have been in business their entire life, or anyone that's been in, in corporate business, but for someone starting out, controls matter. And you start surrounding yourself with people that you just feel like you can trust, so you don't feel like you need those controls. But the controls serve two purposes. And I like what you said there, that they can feel that they're not, it doesn't put them in a position as well, where they have to feel like they could ever be questioned.
Right.
And that's a big deal. You want your employees to feel safe.
Yeah, of course.
You want them to feel safe. And so if you have controls in place, they serve more than two purposes, I'm sure, but one purpose is they protect the company, but they also protect the employee. So the company, if you're an entrepreneur, you're sole proprietor, or if you're an LLC or partnership of any sort, then in that case, you are the company. You can't separate yourself from the company. Your financials, everything are tied together. So when I say it protects the company, it's also protecting you.
Yeah.
But it also needs to protect the employee. You don't want the employee ever to feel like they're in a situation where like, how do I prove that I didn't do that?
Yeah, because even so I can relate. I mean, I send guys out and they do their spray jobs. They have their list, but I don't check in on them. I mean, we have our own controls, but I know sometimes I've had guys that when they're around me, like they're working like crazy hard. You know what I mean? Like they see me and like, oh, pick that up. And it's like, and they don't want me to ever think that I don't think that they're not great. Does that make sense?
I agree.
And so I like this idea of like having these controls in place and making them public. So, hey, as long as you are taking care of these things, I think you're fantastic. Like anything, the journey of the entrepreneur, the business owner is awesome and it sucks at the same time. And going back to whatever year we talked about, the last 10, 12 years, is that your experience?
Yeah. So there's no way I would have known what even when I made that decision in 2011 and 12, and then said no to the partnership offer in 2012, and then said yes in 2014, and got involved even more so because once you sign your name to a note on a mortgage on a building, now all of a sudden I'm even more involved in 2015 and so on. And could I have seen the future? I didn't see the future at all. Even then, I always have this, maybe that's the one thing that does tie me to a lot of other entrepreneurs is I have this eternal hope, an undying hope. Like there's never a no in my future. There's just never a no. And that's maybe a blessing and a curse.
Yeah. No, I know. I know. It's
there is always a way, and it's going to happen. And I have like zero give up in the back of my mind. There's just zero give up.
Wow.
And so sometimes conquering is as much of the journey as I don't know what I would do if I don't know if I could ever be complete. Done,
I can relate to that.
So like, it's just, there's always that effort to just conquer, no matter how difficult it may be and how small you are.
So what are the challenges that you have now? I mean, now we're fast forward past that mess into the new mess of the COVID and the new way of business. Where is the kitchen gallery today? I mean, I know you're looking to add on some new things, some new parts of the business. I know in some ways, I think you've simplified a little bit of some of the operations here. Maybe I'm wrong.
Trying to streamline.
Yeah, streamline.
Yeah.
So what are the challenges and what are you guys working on now?
The number one thing for me, because we don't have an IT department, even though we do outsource some IT. Sure. We do. I mean, I hope every business has to do that. I mean, I think every business has to do that at some point, but we do outsource IT, but we don't have the financial capability to really just say, hey, Joe, take on this whole project and handle it and take care of it for us. As a business owner, you get dirty down in every aspect of your business at this level, at least when you're at this level. So technology, incorporating technology into all the areas of our business is probably one area that's a huge hurdle that I've been trying to jump over for a few years, and I've failed a lot. I had this great dream of a wonderful customer experience, and I see it possible in other industries, and I don't see it as a cohesive product in the kitchen and bath showroom industry.
Interesting.
If there's something out there and someone's able to put it in the comments below, that would be great.
Yeah.
Let me know.
Absolutely. Yeah. Reach out.
I feel like one of my strengths and weaknesses is my interest in new, cutting edge, looking out for the new technology. Yeah. I'm always doing that, and I haven't come across something. So that's a huge hurdle for us because so much of the world has gone that direction. And so much of the world has also had to backtrack a little bit and go, okay, but how can I do that, give a streamlined customer experience, but still provide the personal relationship
Yeah,
of a small business. I'm Amazon, but I want them to feel like there's a person behind, you know. So in our case, I want to have a little bit more of that efficiency that Amazon has, because we definitely have the personal, the goods and the bads and the ugly of the personal side. So what I want to, that's a hard hurdle for us. And I've jumped through a few software systems that didn't pan out because they boxed you in, and they were from other industries, and I was trying to convert it to ours, and it just didn't work. Yeah, it didn't quite work. So that's been a hard road, because it seems I keep going back to the thought, like, am I going to have to pay a developer and a software project manager to develop software just for us? And that's a fortune.
So if anyone's listening, you do have some insight on if there's any software out there that could be, exactly to this industry, let us know.
Yeah, I would love it.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
I'd love it. That's a big thing. And the reason I say that's been a big hurdle for us, because that may sound small to some people, but how you move forward with your business, the systems you implement and so on,
it's everything,
are all just intertwined and connected to the software you use and its capabilities. Yeah. So every time we've had a jump, because we were on our third, and then we dropped it and we went back to Excel. I mean, we're doing Excel spreadsheets right now for, client and data and stuff like that. Wow. When we were in other software, which I'm not going to mention right now, just different other, some were industry specific and some were kind of broad that we were trying to customize. It just it wasn't going the way we wanted it to go. And regardless, that's where we are right now. Yeah, we've plowed a lot of money into those over the years.
It takes a lot of money.
It just takes a lot of money, and you will keep hoping for the fruit on the other side.
What is, besides a few things you've shared, what's one of the biggest lessons that you've learned, being here, being a part of the Kitchen Gallery, that you would go back to Ryan 15 years ago and say, hey, dude, listen to this one thing?
This sounds cliche, I'm sure, but it's the first thing that comes to my mind. It's trust yourself.
What do you mean?
Well, I had examples of it when I was in sales, on the sales side, and just doing sales, where you didn't feel like a customer or a client was the right fit for you or your company.
Yeah.
And I had times where I didn't know any better. I was like, sale's a sale, right? And I would just do it. And then over time I learned, even with that client, later on I learned with that process, like, no, this one's not right. And then I allowed other people to convince me that, no, you need to just do it, because money's money. You got to, it was during the recession and you just got to do it.
Yeah.
So from a sales side and a commission-based employee, that was a lesson I had learned, and I felt like I had reached a point where, like, okay, that's it. Now I'm going to trust my gut. And then you jump ship into running a business and being a partner and being an entrepreneur of sorts, and you have to apply that lesson all over again to multiple other areas of your life. Yeah. And each time I wouldn't, because it was a new area, and I'm like, well, who am I to trust myself? I don't know anything about this. So you trust the expert, or you trust what you've read, or you trust, which I'm not saying those aren't all helpful in helping you make decisions.
Yeah, but there's a feeling inside when you're making decisions. Yeah.
It is. And learn to cultivate that. Learn to cultivate that, to trust it, because the more you do, the more you're going to make the right decisions.
How can someone learn to cultivate that?
By acting on it.
Okay.
You're going to, and when I say that, what I mean is when you don't feel right about something, don't do it. When you feel right about something, do it, and face the consequences of it, because it's a learning process. So you're going to strike out even by doing that. But what's going to happen is over time, you're going to see what does work and doesn't work. But if you don't learn to trust yourself, who can you trust anymore? So the more you trust yourself, the more you learn the processes that work and don't work, you're able to see what fails and doesn't fail because of your choice, not because of someone else. There's no one to blame. When you always go back and say, well, so-and-so told me this or that, and I decided to do it, then you're like, well, next time I'll just trust myself. You still haven't learned anything then, because you didn't learn if your decision-making process, your gut
Yeah.
is guiding you right. But as you do that, and as you make choices based on your gut, your own self will start making better choices, because you'll see like, oh, my choice to do X, Y, X didn't work. I should have done Y, and you can go back and do Y now, hopefully. And you move forward and you're like, oh, Y works. Now I see what I should have been feeling and what I should have felt. If you don't have your inside to trust,
Yeah.
then you have nothing to fall back on. And you're always going to go back and blame somebody else or something else.
And I love this idea of like, not just, I've heard people say trust your gut, but I love you're saying cultivate the experience, like understand it. Like how do feelings play a role in your decisions?
Yeah.
And reflect on it and then say, oh, okay. And then start identifying like the fruits of that decision that was positive, negative, and then ultimately you can make more good decisions than bad.
Well, just like you said, there's going to be fruits of it, right?
Yeah.
So face the consequences of it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Wholeheartedly, and recognize it as a stepping stone towards other decisions you're going to have to make in the future and learning experiences. So when you trust yourself and you make a bad decision, you can't look at it as a wasted opportunity. It's now an opportunity to go, that didn't work, and why didn't it work? And what was I really feeling? And so reflect back on it and decide, like, what was I feeling there? Or was I really just excited about that idea? Or did I feel comfortable with it? Was I comfortable with it, but it didn't excite me? You know, what were the actual dynamics that were going on inside? And start to learn that process, because as you do that, your trust, but if you don't start with trusting yourself, you can't ever start that path.
Yeah, I agree.
You just can't.
I agree.
Because you're always just going off your own path, doing what others tell you. And then when it doesn't go right, you just blame that, blame this, blame that. You know, you're just blaming others, blaming other things. And it doesn't ever develop a path for you.
I love that. I love what you said about like the times when, like, just review it, because and face the consequences, right? Because so many times we do have failures and we can get stuck, right? We, like you said, we make a poor decision, and all of a sudden that's not what I planned. You get down on yourself, the doubt, the voice of self-doubt. You get stuck in that failure. But if you're able to just, like you said, realize this is just like, dude, a failure is a stepping stone, man.
It is
like,
a stepping.
It's part of like getting out. Yeah, I don't know. Like you said, review it and don't get stuck there. Like, just go, okay, that was a bad decision I made.
The review process is critical.
It's everything.
Oh, it's critical.
And I think so many people get stuck in that failure zone, and they feel like they're worthless, or they just feel like they don't have anything to offer, or whatever. Self-value goes down. But if you can just get into that review place and be honest, you might unlock something. You come out a better person.
Oh, right now I have things that, they weigh on you. They do.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not going to be like superhero, business owner guy here that does stuff doesn't just, water off a duck's back. But yeah, I have things like problems right now that have been weighing on me that keep popping up every few years or so. And I keep thinking, I thought I took care of that.
Yeah.
I thought I figured that out. And so then I start to have to go back and have to realize, like, what decisions have we made here? What am I doing? And what am I not doing? And just review that process. And sometimes you just have to let it sit in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
Today is not the day. Not going to be able to, today I have to put fires out. That business has those days. It just has those days.
It does.
And I know there's all kinds of self-help books and entrepreneurial books about like how to schedule your day out so that you take care of the fires this time. There's all that, but fires happen. 4:00 in the afternoon and someone just needs something and you're the one they can reach.
Yeah.
They just need it. So when you run a business, that's the way it goes. But I really feel like, for me personally, it's been a work in progress, such a work in progress, to figure out my decision-making process and to learn to trust it, and to trust it on new things.
Yeah.
It applies across the board, not
the things you already know.
Oh, yeah. It's easy to go like, well, I know how to handle that kind of situation. Been there, done that.
Wow.
It's always the new challenges that are presented that you're just like, you got to face it. And face it and make your choice and move forward and have full faith and trust in what you decided to do.
Yeah. And own it, and then like you said, own the consequence, and then review, and then make another decision, own it, review.
If you push it off on others or this or that, which I find myself doing from time to time.
Oh yeah,
just human nature, maybe. I don't know. Maybe my weaknesses. I find myself doing that, and immediately after it comes out of my mouth, I realize you're not you're not owning up to it. You're not taking, if you internalize it and you take it as your choice 100%, then you're going to take all the consequences as yours. And that's a wonderful thing.
You know, this is, for some reason for me, this is like, I'm thinking of this as we're talking. There's like a deeper discussion here. And not that I want to have the whole thing. Well, I do. But I'm thinking like the parallels here, because sometimes, like, especially entrepreneurs, and we set this expectation on ourselves that is out of control. Like, my wife sees me do it all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Ete, what are you doing? Well, I could do to the gym. Well, I just lifted this, or I just ran this. Tomorrow, I'm going to double it.
Yeah, but
why?
Ete, you're like unconquerable. So.
Well, yeah, no.
I don't mean that in a brown nosing sort of way. I'm just saying, like, for real, like, you have this like contagious.
Well, I would,
and it shows.
Thank you. But sometimes it's like we just expect, and we put so much pressure on ourselves. This is the conversation I'm looking for, right? And so I'm also looking. I guess as you were talking, I'm thinking, man, we need to be kinder to ourselves. We need to be more forgiving and just kind. And that goes in for everybody, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like, entrepreneur or not, just listeners, everybody needs to be nice. Like, just be kind to ourselves and each other. You know what I mean? Like, we put all this pressure and this expectation, and it's like, you know what? Like, that could change real quick if we just, like, relaxed a little bit and we're kinder to ourselves.
You know, sometimes I think that's why I want to go off on a homestead and build furniture.
I don't know how to be kinder to myself. That's like you said earlier. Will you ever stop? And I'm the same way. I go, like, I would love to slow down. I just can't. Like, that's why I'm doing acupuncture, massage, you name it. I can't slow down. Anyway.
Well, I think with the process of owning things, if you own consequences because you've owned the decision, because you trusted your gut, so it was you, and I don't mean that in a selfish sort of way. I don't mean that selfish at all. As a matter of fact, what I mean is kind of opposite of that. You have no way to put it out on others, which is a good thing. To me, that's a good thing. Yeah. Because it's the only way that you can grow. And if you're not growing as an entrepreneur, like as a self, I mean, literally as a self, mm-hmm. in an entrepreneurial position, then what is it doing for you? Yeah. You know, what's in the end, what's the real purpose of it all? Like, it is a path.
Right.
It is a life path that you took. It's not just a business decision.
Right. It's not about money.
It's not a business decision.
Yeah.
Being an entrepreneur, I mean, the accountants may say it's a business decision. The lawyer may say it's a business decision, but it is a path. It's a life choice. Some will, lifestyle gurus will say it's a lifestyle choice. I'm sorry, it's beyond lifestyle. Yeah. It's your life choice. It is, you are integrated, 100% involved, and so own it.
Yeah.
Because then you're not doing yourself a disservice otherwise. If you don't own it, you don't own the consequences and trust yourself as you go along, you're doing yourself a disservice. You're not invested like where you need to be. And when you are, then you'll start to see the fruits from it. Now, I'm not saying that makes you successful overnight, because look at me. I'm not going to say that. I'm on the bottom step here, still trying to work our way up. But it does change the mentality of it all. Yeah. And it makes it doable. It makes it more enjoyable. You'll have your pitfalls, but
so on that, let's get into my final business question, is what you just said. What is success? Because I'd love to hear your definition of it. Because as I've been asking that, it's really interesting. There's so many. I've heard 50 different replies. What is success to you?
That's one of those things you have to write on a 3x5 card and put on your mirror, right? Yeah. Is that what they tell you to do?
Yep. I'm going to be successful.
I'm going to be, yeah.
Because it really is subjective.
It is.
What does it look like to you?
Of course, when you grow up, when you were like, what were those things called that you little origami things?
Oh,
I want a
those
mansion,
little
I want to be rich. I forget what those are called. But
let's make one real quick.
I was going to have a mansion and a Ferrari and all that.
Well, but as a kid, that truly is success, right? We're told that
the
world says, "Hey, success is I have money, I can go anywhere I want, travel what I want." Of course, now social media, on the beach, live the lifestyle I want. But what is it really at the heart of everything you're doing? What is it?
Going back to what I was just saying, I mean, the only way I could really frame it as success to me is knowing that you're on the right path.
Okay.
Plain as simple as that. If I'm on the right path, I'm not worried about if I'm there yet.
I love that.
Am I on the right path? To me, that's success, because if I'm not on the right path, then I'm failing. And am I on the right path? To me, that if I could sum it up in one thing, am I on the right path? And I kind of mean that from a life standpoint and everything, because I'm not worried about being the perfect person tomorrow. I'm definitely not going to be the perfect husband or father tomorrow. Those are way more important than my business side.
Yeah.
Even though the business is our family, we're integrated. Especially to the IRS, we're integrated.
They don't care. They'll come after either way.
So, but if I can say I'm on the right path, it really helps me. And I'm glad you asked that question, because I hadn't really framed that for my business, the business side of my life. I hadn't really framed that in that sort of way, but I definitely look at that from my spiritual and family life. Am I on the right path? That's all like I worry about. And because of that, I don't feel worried.
Interesting.
Does that make sense? I don't mean to say worry in a bad sort of way. I just mean that's my focus. Like, am I on the right path? And I feel good with God. I feel good with my family. I feel good in my personal life, because there's so many things that pull at you in life.
Yeah.
Business and personal life and church life and so on. There's so many things that pull at you that it's easy to feel like a constant failure, because there's no way you're going to accomplish all those things.
Right.
Especially personally, there's no way. If I had a team of people to delegate to, maybe there's some way to at least accomplish the business side, but I still couldn't do the personal and family. So in that regard, am I on the right path?
Oh man, I love that, because I, like everyone else listening, I know at times we all feel like failures. I mean, there's no doubt.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I have struggled with so many things this winter. And that's, like we said, it's not so much about the outcome, the result.
No.
Because if it was, and we're all failures. I mean, there's always someone bigger, better, that has this, you know what I mean? But luckily, it doesn't seem to matter. Like, it's like you said, it's like, and like you said, it's also on a personal level. Am I doing good today? Am I a good person? Am I helping? Am I not, you know what I mean? Not just selfish. And I guess if I'm doing, it sounds like what you're saying is, if I'm doing those things today, I'm on the right path.
You just feel you're on the right path.
And as long as I'm doing that, I'm a success.
That goes back to the trusting your gut.
Yeah.
I say trusting your gut, your conscience, whatever we want to call it.
We're using the word gut. Yeah, definitely not my
your
gut.
Stomach.
We're not going to go on that conversation.
Yeah, don't trust my stomach lately. So if you trust your gut, if you don't trust your gut, how are you going to know if you're on the right path? Yeah. Remember going back to evaluating your decision-making process, and we were having kind of a little bit more of a nuts and bolts conversation there in that process, how making good decisions in a business and so forth, and reviewing your process and reviewing what were you feeling, and what led you to make that good decision or bad decision. That's kind of a nuts and bolts conversation, but now we're talking about what does success mean. And so if I know if I'm on the right path, and I consider that my to be successful, if I'm successful because I'm on the right path, and if I use that as my equation, well, how am I going to know I'm on the right path? If I don't trust my gut, or I don't have a lodestar or something that guides me, if I don't trust myself in that decision-making process, then how do I know I'm on the right path in the first place? If I don't know that, then how can I ever know if I'm successful? So it's kind of a measuring stick. It's a litmus test of sorts, but it's also used for your nuts and bolts decision-making process.
I love it, man. I think, I hope everyone's listening. If you are struggling with feeling like a failure, or just feeling like, man, I'm just not that guy, he's better, comparing yourself, whatever it is, like, this is really what we're talking about. It's like, if you're being the best version of you that you know how to be, then you're on this right, quote unquote path, right? Yeah. And therefore you're successful. So just accept it. Like, so many times I don't feel successful, but that's because I'm thinking of somebody else's definition of success. So
well, maybe.
Yeah. Therefore we're both successful.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think everyone, I really couldn't emphasize in my mind enough how important it is to trust yourself and take, maybe someone would call it a leap of faith, but to take that step and own the consequences, but don't shy away from it.
Yeah.
And look at that as a journey and a process, not that we're all born innately with good decision-making skills or abilities, because we're not. Yeah, we're not. And some are in some areas of life and some are not and are terrible in other areas of life. And that's all fine. We're human and that's all part of our process. It's part of our psyche. But what we can do is at least take the risk, gather up the faith needed to trust ourselves, to trust that process. And when we fail, to trust that it wasn't the process that failed. It was just it was a one step that was wrong. That's okay. That doesn't mean you're off the path.
Right.
That just means that you need to take another step.
Exactly. Done.
Do it again.
Done. Oh man. Awesome, man. Good discussion. My last question for you, just totally different. We're going to shift gears here. You're stuck on an island. You can bring with you one. It's just you. Not one child.
Not another person.
Yeah, no. I'm not gonna say you can pick one of your kids.
That's gonna sound like
you could pick one book, one movie, and one meal, and an album. I have to do that. It's 4.
Oh, an album.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, terrible. Yeah, you're way better with music than I am.
So movie, book, album, meal.
What meteorologist I'd bring with me? I mean, something that's up my. Remember, music wasn't on my radar.
Well, you could go to movie. You could do movie, book, meal.
Oh, meal.
Yeah, start there.
Okay, so that's a no-brainer for me right now. With my, I've been having some little health stomach issues lately. Is Susie's sourdough bread. For me, I know I can live off of. Like it supplies what I need, and I like it, and it's good, and
you don't get sick.
I don't get sick from it.
Okay,
and
it comes from sourdough, right? Isn't that like one living thing that just keeps going forever?
Yeah, I could keep reproducing it, right? Okay, no, I'm not going to bring her starter and make with a field of wheat around me.
Okay. All right. How about
never-ending supply of sourdough?
How about a movie?
I think it's called A Beautiful Life.
Oh my gosh. That's the saddest movie ever.
Isn't it?
A Beautiful Life, the Italian film.
The Italian guy.
With,
it's in Nazi Germany, that one, right?
Yeah, I remember, and it keeps, Buongiorno Principessa.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's a sad movie.
So just looking at the cover would be like, if I had a movie to pick, that would probably be the movie.
No one's ever
It would
said
just
that.
be a reminder to me of what's important in life.
Yeah, that's a great film. If you guys haven't seen it, that's an amazing film, but it's a tearjerker.
Oh, yeah.
It's brutal.
And beautiful at the same time.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful life, right?
Yeah, it's a beautiful life.
Yeah. And then a book. Oh, the Book of Mormon. That for me, I mean, I don't know if you wanted like more of a secular book.
No, any book. It doesn't matter.
Okay, yeah, that would be that for me. I remember the day that came real to me. It made all else more real
I thought
to me.
you were about to say, I remember the day that book came out. It was on the, I'm like,
I'm a lot older than you think.
No, but it became real. Gotcha.
Yeah, the Book of Mormon. Yeah, when it came real to me, and that was when my relationship with God became so much more real. And of course, to me, that's when we talk about gut.
Yeah.
And there's
that's the core of it.
Yeah, there's a link there. That's to me I've known some incredible people in life that don't necessarily believe in a higher power, and they're vested with just incredible personal abilities.
Yeah.
I have I would say we have beliefs that regarding that, but I just, for me personally, it's a direct, that connection with God that really helps me to have faith and trust in myself in the first place.
Yeah.
So I can't separate that. So yeah, Book of Mormon.
That's awesome. And you can read it all. I mean, you can read that all the time.
Yeah.
You're always learning something new in that one.
I'll never, yeah.
Awesome. Well, you guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Definitely some different topics I don't think we've talked about, so I'm pretty stoked about that. But Kitchen Gallery here in Ormond Beach. Ryan, his father, Laval. I said that right.
Yeah, Laval,
I practiced it because I was saying Laval. As you can tell, just doing some awesome stuff, and they have some new stuff coming. They're going to move into plumbing, some plumbing things. That's the plan.
Yeah, we're working into plumbing, hardware. We're expanding into more hardware categories. Awesome. Right now, we're just in decorative. We're moving into more architectural and other hardware categories. We'll be moving into lighting as well.
Wow.
So there's some other areas that that's one of the reasons we remodeled the whole building.
Wow.
And expanded our showroom. So.
And that's awesome. And I know we didn't talk a ton specifically about the Kitchen Gallery, but there's a link in the show notes if you guys, especially you that are local here in the Ormond Beach, Daytona area, Because you don't go. How far out would you go? I mean,
Yeah, we're 2 counties basically, but we
Volusia
do
and-
Volusia, Flagler County, but we've done work in Orlando area,
Okay.
Winter Park, and
Okay.
so on. So we
So if you're in this Florida area,
we're
you
doing
know,
2 jobs right now in North Carolina. So
Yeah, well,
you
if
never
you're in
know.
North Carolina,
Yeah.
but you can go to the website. You can stop on in. But as you can tell, it's a company full of people, you know, and what they care about are people. You know, they want to give you the best customer experience, and you could tell from Ryan that's really what he wants to do. And in fact, he said it's not quite. He hasn't even seen it in the industry. What I think the vision he has for customer experience is not being done anywhere.
No, we haven't found it.
But
Yeah.
that's how much he cares about the experience. And I love that we started off talking about history and old things and trying to incorporate that into 2021. You know, it's just. And all this stuff. So anyway, you guys, thanks for tuning in. Ryan, thanks for taking some time
Thanks, I tell you.
and let me crash the party here. And we'll see you guys on the next episode. Take care.
Thank you.